Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Chris Randone as we get you ready for a holiday Monday here. It will be December 30th. We, of course, are recording this on December 29th, Sunday night. The Seattle Seahawks and San Francisco 49ers have just begun their game. We had some wild NFL Week 17 action. I think the one thing nobody thought was going to happen was the Patriots losing at home to the Dolphins as 16-point favorites. What a disaster. The Patriots now will be on the road as a wild card team.
I'm to be honest with you, I kind of called it. I think it was yesterday, the day before. I said this was a trap. Fitzmagic has been playing fairly well, and the 16 spread. I really thought taking the Dolphins at plus 16 was like a given, considering how they've played offensively in the passing game the last few weeks. So, but to win outright, that's a little wild. In New England, when there was so much on the line, New England's just not the same, man. And I think it's time to say that maybe age is getting to Brady as well.
Brady and potentially Belichick. We will have to see.
Ooh,
We
I
will
like
have
that.
to see. A
I
lot
like
of
that
lot of
call.
moving parts, but I mean, to be fair, good God, Tom Brady, 42 years old, 20 seasons. Come on,
Yeah.
what more can you do? But with their defense and their adequate offensive line, the fact that they really didn't have a lead at all during the game, that's a little bit scary. So there you go, New England
Yeah.
fans. But we are going to talk some NBA here. We are going to go game by game. We have 6 games, and the first 4, surprisingly, we do not yet have totals for them. The reason I say surprisingly is that none of our teams are on a back-to-back. Well, the second half of a back-to-back. Everybody that played on Sunday is off on Monday. So our first game we're going to talk about is Miami at Washington. Now, we know why there's not a total here, because Bradley Beal was out on Saturday night with a sore calf. So he is someone that we will need to keep an eye on here. But I'm going to turn this over to you, Chris. What are you seeing at first blush here from Miami, a team that gets a lovely pace-up spot? And I hate using that term, but the Wizards are playing at a top 3 pace this season, and Miami, well, let's look where they are right now. They are a bottom 5 pace. So the spread between these teams is 5.5 possessions. Now that is relatively sizable. So that's where you really want to look at. And I usually only say pace up spot if it's like a bottom 5 team going against a top 5 team, or two top 5 or 2 top 10 teams, or 2 bottom 10 teams. That's when you really see the paces change. If it's, number 8 going against number 17, it really doesn't move the needle because they're only separated by 2.5 possessions per game. But what do you like from Miami? Let's assume Bradley Beal is in for these purposes.
Yeah, but if Bradley Beal's in, I think he might be in consideration. But can we just talk about Gary Payton Jr. for a
Well,
second?
sure. Let's go. Let's go over there. Off of
I mean,
waivers to becoming the best offensive player on the Washington Wizards in 3 games. How does that happen?
what's crazy is the amount of steals that he's getting. Like, in 3 games, he has 13 steals. I mean, for FanDuel purposes, that's insane. He was, I
You
think,
you
last
know who
night.
his dad is, right?
Of course, the
And do you know
legend,
his
the
dad's
glove.
his dad, the glove? Okay,
Yeah.
so perhaps there is something to this hereditary trait of him stealing the ball so much.
Clearly the glove was passed down in the family, because this guy is a hawk on defense. So he's 6,200 now, and like, we have to think that there is going to be regression here. I mean, just to consistently do that, I don't know if that's sustainable. But for FanDuel, I mean, yesterday he was 45% owned. He was 4,500. Now, obviously, things change as prices increase yet again, but it's just very interesting. And I would think that if Beal is out, I don't mind considering him maybe on FanDuel more than DraftKings. But on the Miami Heat side of the ball, if Beal doesn't even play, I mean, you would have to think this is going to be an absolute blowout. What do you think the line would be on this game if Beal doesn't play?
Beal doesn't play. I would say probably Miami by 8 would be my guess.
Really? Wow. Okay. That's a little bit more respectful than what I was going to say about 13, 14. Yeah. I mean, I just don't see how Washington can compete with Miami. Now, I will say this. I probably like Tyler Hero here off the bench. I think this is a great spot for him in a pace-up spot, and him just being able to get more possessions and put up more shots. I mean, he takes double-digit shots every game, but the minutes are there. If he could just sink a few more shots, I mean, he's definitely worth it at 4,600 on DraftKings. I don't mind that at all. Kendrick Nunn, he's been consistent, and what I like is he's 5,100. He did only play 22 minutes last game, which is a little bit of concerning. Only took 8 shots. But before that, I mean, he was on a little bit of a streak where high 30s, sometimes in the 40-minute range. Now, obviously, things fluctuate based on how Spoelstra brings out these rotations, but I feel like this is a really good matchup for him, especially if Beal is out as well. So I like the guard play here. When we get to Butler and when we get to Bam, I mean, I think they're perfect plays, but I think the only thing that concerns me is will they get an entire 4-quarter game? Because I really do think that this is such a mismatch. I see Miami really handling them with ease.
Right, that seems reasonable. The prices come, well, I don't want to say come down. The price is still reasonable on a few of these other Wizards here. So I think, regardless of Beal's status, that Jordan McRae at 46 on DK, 4,000 on FanDuel, and in particular $10 on our sponsor Yahoo Fantasy. We'll talk about them in a moment. I think he's someone who's a reasonable guy. We should see him play about 25 minutes, and that's about the price point and minute level, and his 0.8 fantasy points per minute are what we're looking for someone in that price and that range. Troy Brown Jr. is fairly priced particularly on FanDuel at 5,500. You can get rid of that pesky small forward position, and then that is the spot at 5,300 where I think you can look again.
He's a little pricey on I think on DraftKings, right? Didn't he creep up to 5,800?
Yeah, 58 there, and Peyton 62. I wouldn't really consider those guys as much on DraftKings, depending on what's going on. But tough matchup against Miami, particularly if Beal's out. And the other thing we saw with Beal, I mean, he's kind of the tent pole that keeps this whole thing going here. The Wizards, despite all of the other injuries they've had, they've still managed to be one of the most efficient offenses. Beal gone, they just couldn't do anything against New York. They had moments, but they couldn't sustain anything, and that is one of the things that you worry about when you're down to just a bunch of guys that really should be 8th, 9th, 10th men in rotations. They can't put a cognizant team out on the floor. When you see a lot of the teams, like we keep using Memphis Grizzlies as an example from 3 years ago and 4 years ago, they were playing 7 or 8 guys, but they were all like borderline fringe starters or first guys off the bench and veterans. They were capable enough of, plus they had their whole grit and grind systematic offense. They were able to do it just because it was plug and play. Team like Wizards, they don't really have a very good set offense the way Scott Brooks runs things. It's more flex and feel and coming off of what Beal's going to be doing. So when he's not there, it falls apart because who can you plug in there? Certainly, I mean, you can try with Isaiah Thomas, but lest we forget, he's 5 inches shorter and 50 pounds lighter, but it just makes it tough. From the Miami side, you kind of mentioned Hero. If we just look at anybody there, for me, it's going to be Bam Adebayo. 76 on DK. That's a steal. I wish he still had power forward eligibility, but we'll take it. On FanDuel, wow, 9,100 and power forward. I don't really want to spend there. He's probably appropriately priced at 36 on Yahoo, but I do like his $7,600 price tag along on DraftKings, along with Goran Dragic on all 3 sites at 52, 53, and 17 respectively. Did you want to hit on anything else here from Miami?
Yeah, let's just hit on Jimmy Butler real quick.
Oh, yeah. Let's not bury the lead, Mac. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I said he's a great play, and looking at it even further now, he's priced considerably down, I would say, and I think that's just based off games, the last few games. But he's 7,800. He's flirted around with triple doubles throughout the course of the season. But they did play the Wizards on December 6th, and he went for 28, 11, and 11. It was a 112, 103 game. It was in Miami. So I just will say this. I mean, obviously, he's been scoring in double digits, 20-plus game, I think now. Out of the last 12 or 13 games, 12 out of those 13, he's gotten to 20 points or plus. So I don't mind him at all at 7,800. In fact, on DraftKings, I think he's kind of like a lock on a 6-game slate, I would think, just based on the upside that he brings. And obviously, this is a great pace up for him.
All right, on to our next game here. This is Orlando at Atlanta. We already have Trae Young ruled out of this one, so now we've seen what it's Atlanta at Orlando. We've seen what Atlanta's going to do now without him, and it's not particularly pretty. John Collins coming in at 8,700 on DraftKings is, I'm going to call that reasonable. The similar to losing Bradley Beal, we've seen Atlanta disappear or fall apart completely from time to time without Trae Young. But most of those games this year were happening also without Collins, who was in the midst of a 25-game suspension. He, in a similar situation, and granted this was in Chicago, so much different matchup, but in Chicago on Saturday, he put up 34 points, 8 boards, and 3 blocks. Since returning from his suspension, he has had 2, 3, and 3 blocks, and he is averaging 13 rebounds per game and 20 points per game. That's pretty solid. We're paying for it, but he would be the guy that I do have some interest in. On the other side for me, the keystone player is going to be Nikolai Vucevic. Now we're already talking, we're 2 games in and we've hit on basically three guys that are center eligible. So we can't have too many of those guys. But Vuce, I think, is in a good spot here as well, and he's kind of the leader on offense. Aaron Gordon is dealing with a sore Achilles, so we'll have to double check his status. We do not have a spread yet on this game. Mo Bamba is also dealing with the sprained ankle, and then Alex Len is back. He is probable for this game. He did play last on Saturday against Chicago. In 20 minutes he had 10 points, 5 boards, 2 assists. So just throwing that out there. What do you like here from this particular matchup? Anything from the front court, since I blatantly ignored them? I'm only giving you the good stuff.
I do like Jonathan Isaac. I think he's incredible defensively, very talented wing. And if Gordon's out too, I think that'll give him a bump, a little bit more minutes, probably, an extra minute or two. But I mean, the way that he is defensively, he pays off just from his defensive stats, almost essentially on FanDuel. It's incredible. And so for me, I mean, he also can score. If he can shoot 13 attempts like he did last game, I love that. And if Gordon's out, I feel like he'll get more shots up. So I don't mind him there. He's 6,500 on DraftKings. On FanDuel. I didn't pull up the price. Did you have the price on FanDuel?
Oh, sorry. For Isaac?
Yeah.
66 on FanDuel, 25 on Yahoo, 65 on DK.
Yeah. I mean, him being in the 6,000 range, I still don't mind. So I really like Jonathan Isaac. I'm not too big on the guards for Orlando. If anything, I'm going to go Vucevic, like you mentioned, or Jonathan Isaac. Gordon, Achilles, I don't know necessarily if I want to mess with that. So I would think that they'll probably rest him because I think this game, could be simple with Trae Young out for Orlando at home. I don't see this being too much of a concern. And then on the other side of the ball, I mean, I think John Collins, he can be mentioned here. He is 8,700. So I think his price tag will kind of scare people off. But I mean, the guy's a beast. And obviously his usage goes out the roof and his shot attempts go up with Trae Young off the floor. So he is the primary scorer with Trae Young not in the lineup. And I mean, that's something you have to consider there. So I do like John Collins. I mean, these other guys, they're hit or miss, like Bembry, Cam Reddish. They're cheap. You can plug them in if you want, depending on how you construct your lineups. But I don't necessarily think they can get you there to win a GBP, in my opinion.
All right, heading on to our next game, of course, major player Karl-Anthony Towns has missed his last 6. That is why we do not have the projected point total or spread for this game. It's Brooklyn at Minnesota. Kind of a fun one here. Spencer Dinwiddie at 7,700 on DraftKings. Very enticing. Andrew Wiggins missed the last game on Saturday. He was a late scratch with the illness. We'll have to see what his status is as well, but this would be a solid matchup for him. Brooklyn, over their last 30 days, is playing at a top 10 pace, which is nice, but they also have a top 10 defensive efficiency. So that is something that's been improving and changing. Now, one of the reasons we like to look more at a rolling 30-day is you usually get between, as long as there's no all-star break, holidays, etc. within there, usually get most of the teams playing between 10 and 15 games. Teams usually play about what 2.5 or so a week. So what you get there is, or three, I'm sorry, 3.5 a week. They play basically every other day, but not every week. So sorry, tripped myself up there. But what you're getting is, one, you're just getting still a big enough difference between the opponents, a trailing history of the opponent, so you're not saying a bunch of fast-paced teams, a bunch of slow-paced teams, etc. But what you're able to catch is changes in rotation, changes in perhaps coaching philosophy, etc. And it's better to look at that kind of 1 month sample size rather than rely upon the entire season when you look at the the Hollinger pace stats, the defensive efficiencies, etc. So usually I will try to call that out if I'm looking at full season or the 30-day number. But at this point, I'm going to start looking more at the 30-day number. Sorry, Chris, that was our little teaching moment there for the day. But Dinwiddie, Jeff Teague not starting but closing, even though he's coming off the bench. Shabazz Napier, reasonable option. He's starting but hasn't been closing as much. He and Teague hadn't been playing together a ton. But if Wiggins is out again, they probably will be forced to share the court a little bit. This is a decent matchup for Joe Harris. Robert Covington had a nice hey, what about me game. The last two, he's played 35 and 40 minutes. Dropped 37 and 35 fantasy points, so he could be on the radar. We have a lot of choices here, Chris. No real strong one, but do you have a personal preference on either side of the ball here?
Love the Dinwiddie call. I mean, still with no Kyrie Irving, I mean, he is the main ball handler. The usage rate is there, but it's like his price is starting to become where he's just kind of flatlined, 35, 38, 40. 34. I mean, it's not necessarily getting you there. So you have to ask yourself, is it worth it when you could just pay up a little bit more and maybe get like a Levine, a Mitchell, a Lillard, or maybe even a Devin Booker or Ricky Rubio, who are a little bit less than him. So that's the only thing with him. GBP, I don't mind it. Cash game, I'd probably stay away from. And then outside of that, I mean, Jared Allen, someone who, double-double potential, someone who can definitely get you there defensively. I do like it. He's 6,200, so I don't mind that on DraftKings. And then outside of that, though, I mean, Joe Harris, Taurean Prince, I mean, even Garrett Temple, these guys are all hit and miss. They're not necessarily like great plays like you mentioned, but, sometimes they do get you there. So I don't mind sprinkling them in a GPP format. The other side of the ball, I'm kind of a little disgruntled still on talking about them because Minnesota kind of let us down. I don't know if they let you down last night, but the
list was long of players that let me down, along with the guy who screwed up his upload, not once, but twice.
I mean, Gorgie Dane, what happened? I mean, like it was a great situation for him too against Cleveland. And I was really surprised that, he only scored 5 points. He only took 8 shot attempts. I mean, really with Wiggins and Towns out of the offense, you would think that at least Teague also would step up, and that just wasn't the case. I was really kind of confused on that game, but I do like Teague, obviously in this matchup. If there's no Wiggins and there's no Towns, do we know if Wiggins will play yet, or is it still just questionable?
Still questionable. I'm sure we'll hear more because they will have a shoot around tomorrow. So
I wouldn't be surprised if these two don't play, but if they don't, I think we can talk. I think we can consider Teague. I think we can consider Gorgie Dane. You're not going to get there with a Koji or Culver or Graham, so I would kind of just stay away from them, even though they are cheap, but they just don't have the upside to help you win tournaments. So for me, that's a no-go. And then outside of that, that's pretty much it for this game.
All right, continuing along, reminder, we do have the DFS strategy show that will be Monday morning at 9:30. You will be getting Josh Engelman and Dave Lochran walking you through that one. You'll have to stay tuned for our NFL content schedule. Of course, we've got the wild card weekend upon us here, and we will know, depending on what happens here with as we're recording this, with the 49ers, who are now up 10-0 on the Seahawks. They will either finish with the best seed, number 1, or a fifth seed. Yes. Deebo Samuel with a 30-yard run. Darn it.
With a 30-yard run?
Yeah.
Oh my God, this guy.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't score any more before I can get downstairs and watch this one. But definitely check out Laffy and Josh Always a good time there. They will go game by game in detail, along with other stories, and they'll probably look at some of the NFL contests from the day before and results with the Fantasy Cruncher Pro. We've got Milwaukee at Chicago. Giannis Antetokounmpo missed. I was joking that he had a back-to-back and was just, going to play that second game and just missed that first one. No, he was held out of the second one. If he is held out of a third straight game, definitely look at Ersan Ilyasova. I'm okay that his price is ticked up. This is another good matchup for him against Chicago, so don't be too worried about that. We're probably not going to see 50 burgers from him, but a foray into 30 fantasy points would not be a surprise if Giannis is out of this matchup. On the other side, I am comfortable going with Zach LaVine. He is 8,300. The price is getting up there, but I doubt the popularity will follow him. So he's someone I've got on the short list. And then we should see the return of Eric Bledsoe. So that he himself is a little underpriced. Let me look at the industry pricing here. Sorry, I did not. I'm still on Brooklyn. Let's go with Bledsoe here. He is 57 on DraftKings, 56 on FanDuel, but 28 on Yahoo. So not really a great price there on Yahoo. He has sat out 8 games with that bruised shin. We'll have to see if he's on a minutes limit or going to play, etc. But I do like him on the Yahoo and probably the FanDuel and DraftKings pricing there. What do you like here amongst our battle of the Midwest?
Oh man, how about Ursan, man? It's incredible, right? You give this guy
Ursanity, baby.
That's crazy, man. 42.75 and 47 his last 2 games. If Giannis is out, I think we could run it back. I mean, why not? I mean, even it's still at 5,600. We can't really need too much out of him. I mean, he's going to crash the boards. He's going to take his shots and shoot threes. So, but obviously, all the good things come to an end. So I would just, be a little bit cautious compared to where he was at 3,800 2 games ago. But I love the Ursan. Bledsoe coming back, if he does come back, you would have to consider that he might play 18 minutes, 20 minutes, if that. Especially with the leg injury. So that means that endurance wise, and also like game speed, he has to get back into a groove. Usually when it's a lower body injury, you usually see about 18 to 20 minutes. So even though he's priced appropriately, I just don't know if he can get there in 18 minutes at 5,700. So I don't know. That's a little bit iffy. I'd have to look more into that and see a little bit more before kind of lock happens. But outside of that, though, how about Lauri Markkanen, man? He was questionable last night and then just kind of went off in 22 minutes. Yeah. A little bit down from where he plays as far as minutes wise, but his shot went in, and when he's on fire and he can shoot, I mean, obviously he can put up a lot of points. The only thing with Markkanen, though, is he's more of a score dependent type of fantasy player. On rare occasions, he does get a couple assists, and on some games, he will get rebounds, but it's not as consistent as you would like. So that's the only thing. But outside of that, though, I don't mind him in this matchup, especially against Milwaukee. And then other than that, though, I'm not too keen on the guards. Maybe Satoransky or LaVine. I'm speaking of Milwaukee. I'm not too big on the guards like DiVincenzo, Bledsoe, or even George Hill. But on the Bulls side, I think Satoransky or LaVine can be considered in this matchup.
All right, moving along to our next one here. This is a fun one. So I've looked up, we've got Andre Drummond with Detroit. We've got Rudy Gobert with Utah. They are squaring off. I wanted to see how these behemoths have fared against each other. So Andre Drummond, in most recent and these are 4 consecutive games, but over 2 seasons. So most recent through reverse chronological order: 40 DK points, 45 DK points, 31 DK points, 83 DK points. We'll talk about that one in a second. In those games, Gobert most recently had 58, 28, 42, and 34. So what the hell happened in that game where Drummond had 83 DK points. Well, he played 39 minutes. There was overtime. However, Gobert was on the court for 38. So it wasn't like he was playing without Gobert there. There was just one overtime in which Detroit scored 9 points and Utah scored 6. So even though they each got 5 extra minutes, it wasn't like there was an extra boatload of stats out there. But good God. Those are some nice numbers. So I think it's safe to play either of those guys against each other. Don't have to worry about Drummond drawing Gobert out away from the paint and vice versa. They will just be battling each other for boards and for shots in the paint. So that could be a fun one to watch because we don't get to see that matchup more than twice a year. Those are the main guys I'm looking at for this one. Depending on, let me see. What do we have here with the Blake show? Is the Blake show out? Let me look at that. What do you like here from this game?
Is the Blake show out?
I'm checking. I was buying myself time there, and you were
No. I don't.
Doubtful for Monday, sore knee. So
okay, yeah.
If he is out, Christian Wood comes into play as one of our discount options. That's where I wanted to go because I'm blanking on who's their guard that kind of came out of, not Lance Kendrick. Why am I stuck on that name? Anyway, maybe it is Kendrick. They're out for another couple games, but those are the key moving parts there. I don't think Blake is going to play. So
yeah, I mean, he's so hit or miss, Christian Wood. But he is 3,800. So yeah, if Griffin's out, I mean, yeah, we can fire him up a little bit, but you would have to think that he's going to play 20, 22 minutes.
Even when Griffin's out, his minutes have not really crested because here are his minutes, and these are games with or without Blake. 23, 23, 5, 7, 28, 21, 13, 15, 17, 14, 20, 23. I wouldn't put him in for more than 23, 24 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think he will play that much. I think he's capped out. I think what happens is they cap him and then that's pretty much it. So where's the upside when that situation happens to you as well? But I mean, this is a great matchup, man. Drummond against Gobert. I think what I would say is I think I like Drummond here at 9,300. If Griffin's out, I like Drummond even more because obviously it just everything goes through him. So I would say fire him up at 9,300 on DK. I don't mind him. Even if Towns does come back and is limited, I just don't think that's a great play. So I think Drummond is your overall best center. But then again, I do like Gobert to some extent, but Gobert doesn't have the same upside like Drummond does. There's just a lot more usage to go around on Utah to Mitchell, to Ingles, Bogdanovich. I mean, these guys take a lot of shots as well. And if they go in, there's no really offensive rebound opportunities for Gobert either. So in this matchup at the center position, I would take Drummond over Gobert. And then other than that, though, I think Donovan Mitchell, 8,400 on DraftKings, somewhat okay. I think the main guy that we need to focus on here is just Joe Ingles, man. This guy, Jingles, is just, he's been on fire. Playing a ton of minutes, taking a ton of shots. And I mean, he's doing it on all sides of the ball, assists, rebounds, points. So I don't mind him. And I mean, they keep him in the rotations heavily. So fire up Joe Ingles at 6,100. He's underpriced, I believe. And I love him. I love this play here in this matchup.
Absolutely. I would also put in Jordan Clarkson as well. I think he is someone that is perfect for Utah. Clearly, Mike Conley's going to be out longer than anybody expected. I think Jordan Clarkson, he does not the same type of defender as Royce O'Neal, but he is a better guy to have in the closing unit just because he's another scorer on the floor. So I don't mind him if we're looking for some placeholder value. There are enough teams on the slate tomorrow with 14 that we'll get something that we don't know about right now. But that's just something to utilize there. In their last 10 games, the Jazz are middle of the pack for defensive rating. So that is a bit of a surprise. So not quite the defensive stalwarts that we've seen or that we generally expect as baseline, but from a pace standpoint, they're 22nd in the league. So they're still moving a little bit slower. This one is going to be at altitude, of course. They're in Salt Lake City. I just want to see where Detroit is. Detroit slowed down a little bit. They're the 15th fastest team over their last 10 games. And I want to see where they are on defense because they were just hemorrhaging points there for a while. Ooh, ha. No wonder I couldn't find them. Second worst, Chris. They're allowing 116 points per 100 possessions over their last 10 games. So, giddy up for some of those Jazz players.
Hey, man, the Jazz are pretty good. Last night in that Clippers game, the Clippers had a lead in the fourth quarter and they just collapsed. And they scored, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, 5 points in the last 6 minutes of the game. I mean, the defensively, Utah just kind of clamped down and really shut down Kawhi in that second half as well. So, Utah, they have a pretty solid team. I think what they're missing and what I think is why they got him is Jordan Clarkson coming off the bench gives them some of that depth for someone to come in and score off the bench. So I like Utah as a team, and defensively, this is probably going to be a very difficult matchup for Detroit. So it's somewhat of a risk taking Drummond as well because I think there could be blowout potential here. Where they do just get a big lead and Detroit's just stuck. So, I mean, outside of that, though, maybe you can consider Derrick Rose in that situation. But other than that, man, I don't know if I'm so keen on this game for fantasy purposes as maybe some others here on this 6-game slate.
All right, let's hit our nightcap here. Phoenix at Portland. On the Portland side, love some Hassan Whiteside here. He continues to do very well, just getting those extra fourth quarter minutes, something he didn't get under Coach Spoelstra. He's averaging a career high in assists, 30% more than his best season, 1.3 assists per game. But hey, double from last year when it was 0.8 per game. So that is a massive improvement. He used to get 1 or 2 assists per week. He's definitely doing a little bit better from that standpoint. So he's someone I think will be one of my core plays. Damian Lillard, of course, always a force, especially when no one's waiting to meet him at the rim. And it looks like DeAndre Ayton is not going to be playing in this game. So rim protection, they still do have Aaron Baines, but he's not exactly the most fierce. Especially against someone like Lillard, who's one of the better drive guys in the league. What do you like here from our final game of the night?
Yeah, I mean, looking at this game, this could be a lot of different fantasy options. I mean, obviously we know kind of how Phoenix plays. I believe they're still, oh no, they dropped now. Oh no, okay, they're number 10. They're number 10 in pace. So and then Portland's right behind them. So this 10 and 11th in pace. They're both up tempo teams. So I like this matchup for fantasy purposes. I mean, if you look at Devin Booker, I believe his price currently right now is 7,500 on DK. Don't mind it. He had a really good game last night against Sacramento. It was kind of like the Devin Booker that we normally see in fantasy. So 7,500, took 23 shots, 41 minutes. I think this game stays close, and I think that benefits all the guards, Lillard, McCollum. I like Ricky Rubio in this matchup as well. And then when it comes to the big men, obviously Whiteside is always an option, and I think DeAndre Ayton is out, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, Aaron Baines in this matchup for him, pretty easy. I could see Whiteside really having an easy game in that front court. And then other than that, though, Oubre is always in consideration on the wing, plays a ton of minutes. Carmelo, he's somewhat interesting. I think his price has dropped a little bit now, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Yeah, he's 5,300. The only thing with Carmelo is man, can you make your shots? Because outside of that, though, if he doesn't make his shots, he's not going to pay off for you. So we just need him to score, and we need him to take a ton of shots. Because outside of that, he's going to get you a couple rebounds, but really anything else, he's not fantasy valuable. But the minutes are there. If we could just see him make more shots, I don't mind him at 5,300.
All right, so let's look at some Yahoo value plays and we'll get on out. If you're a reminder, they are the presenting sponsor of the Early Bird podcast. If you go to any of the cash building blocks articles, the bottom, and those are a daily feature that we have, free article in front of the paywall written by yours truly, but the bottom section does talk about how you can get $30 in YSRPs, that is Yahoo Sports Rewards points, with your initial deposit over there on Yahoo. If you come in on the link that is there, use the promo code Osmo and make a deposit, they will match up to $30 in their Yahoo Sports Rewards points, and you can use those immediately into any contest. $10 players here, $11, $12 players. You got Christian Wood at 11. I would rather play Aaron Baines at 13. He has better minutes upside. They're both centers. Terrence Ross is permanently locked in to $10 on Yahoo. I like him against Atlanta. You have Kent Bazemore, who did lose his starting spot, but still played a prominent role off the bench. So we'll have to see if they change the rotation around at all. I believe it was Skal Labissiere that was playing. That could have just been a size thing. But Bazemore is at $10. He's reasonable. You've got Cam Reddish, who's going to be without Trae Young. He is $10. Kevin Huerter at 13. Adequate. Should play a little bit of the backup point guard there, but he's sort of hit or miss, and this isn't the easiest of matchups going against Milwaukee. Jordan McRae, I mentioned I really liked him earlier in the show. He again is $10. And then Jordan Clarkson, solid, coming off the bench, as Chris mentioned there, for Utah, but he is someone in play at $12. With that, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Randone. I am at EMACDFS, and of course, it is Asimo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.